The great alien palace was silent except for the echo of footsteps. Tall guards with shining armor dragged a human prisoner through the long hall. The human's wrists were bound in glowing chains, each spark reminding him that he was not free. The crowd of alien nobles stared at him as if he was nothing more than a strange animal brought for punishment. The human, whose name was Daniel, kept his head high. His face was bruised, his clothes torn, but his spirit was not broken. He had been captured during a border conflict between humans and the alien empire. Everyone in the palace believed this. Was his last day? A human prisoner had no right to speak in front of alien royalty, let alone survive. At the end of the hall stood a throne made of crystal and silver. Sitting upon it was the alien princess. She was young, her skin glowing faint blue, her golden eyes sharp yet filled with something else, something hidden. Her name was Princess Liara, and she was known for her pride. Everyone expected her to order the human's execution. The guards threw Daniel on his knees, his chains clattered on the floor. His eyes lifted, meeting hers. For a moment, silence filled the hall. Nobles leaned forward, waiting to hear the words that would seal his fate. The High Minister stepped closer to the princess and whispered, "Command it, my lady. The human is dangerous. He must be erased." But Liara's lips did not form the word of death. Instead, she rose slowly from her throne, her long dress shimmering under the palace lights. She looked at Daniel with an expression no one could read. The human expected anger, hatred, or cruelty, but what he saw in her eyes was desperation. Then her voice broke the silence, clear and steady. "This human will not be executed." The court gasped. 100 voices murmured in shock. She continued, her tone sharper now. "This human will take me as his wife." The hall erupted into chaos. Ministers shouted. Guards froze in disbelief. Nobles screamed that the princess had lost her mind. Even Daniel, bruised and chained, widened his eyes in shock. His heart pounded in his chest as her words sank. "You're taking me as your wife. Really?" he blurted out, his voice echoing louder than he intended. The question hung heavy in the air. Both surprise and disbelief colored every word. Liara's face did not change. She kept her gaze on him, steady and unblinking. The nobles continued their protests. "Impossible!" shouted one. "Shame upon the crown!" cried another. The High Minister dropped to his knees, begging her to reconsider. "Princess, this cannot be done. He is human. He is filth. The people will not accept this." But Liara raised her hand, silencing them all. Her voice trembled, only slightly, as she repeated, "He will marry me. My decision is final." Daniel's chains burned against his wrists as he stared up at her. He could not understand why she would say such words. Was this a trick? Was she mocking him? Or was there something hidden behind her steady eyes? The guards looked at each other, confused. None dared disobey her command. Slowly, they pulled Daniel back to his feet. He stumbled but kept his balance. His mind raced. He had fought aliens before, faced death more than once, but nothing had ever shocked him like this. The alien court was still roaring with anger. Some shouted that the empire would collapse. Others whispered that the princess was bewitched. Daniel, however, noticed something that no one else seemed to see. For just a second, when her eyes met his, there was a flicker of fear. She was not mocking him. She was not playing a cruel game. She was asking for something. The High Minister whispered again. "Your Highness, if you do this, the warlord will not stay silent. He will claim betrayal. He will bring fire to our people." Liara clenched her fists. Her golden eyes shined like burning suns, but still her voice held steady. "Let him try," she said. "This is my choice." Daniel's mind spun. He had been prepared to die. He had been ready to face execution with courage. But now he was being pulled into something far more dangerous, something that did not end with his death, but perhaps with a future he never imagined. As the guards dragged him away, back toward the royal chambers, he heard the shouts of angry nobles echo behind him, yet his thoughts were on her, on the alien princess who had just chosen him, a human prisoner as her husband. Why? Why him? Why now? The question burned in his mind. The answer, he felt, was far darker than anyone in that palace wanted to admit, and so began a story not of chains breaking, but of hearts colliding. In that moment, Daniel realized something chilling. He was no longer a prisoner of war, he was a prisoner of destiny. The alien palace had never been so loud. Voices clashed like swords. Each noble, each minister shouted with rage and fear. Some called the princess brave, most called her foolish, but all of them agreed. What she had done was madness. The princess sat silently on her throne, her golden eyes calm, but her heart raced beneath her chest. She had just declared that a human prisoner, Daniel, would become her husband. Now the entire court burned with whispers, and not just whispers. Threats. In the shadows of the hall hidden away from her throne, voices of the powerful gathered. The ministers closed their circle and began to plot. "This cannot stand," hissed one. "The warlord will burn us alive," said another. They knew the truth. The princess was betrothed to a cruel and mighty warlord, a general feared across galaxies. He had crushed rebellions with fire and chains. If he discovered that his promised bride had chosen a human instead, blood would follow. One of the older ministers, a man with wrinkled skin and a silver crown, leaned closer to the others. His voice was low. "Perhaps the princess has lost her mind," he said. "But we can still undo this. If the human vanishes, the warlord never has to know." The words spread like poison. Some nodded in agreement. Already, assassins were being considered. Plots whispered of silent knives in the dark. The human was not just a prisoner anymore. He was now the most dangerous piece on the board. Meanwhile, Daniel was thrown into a chamber far different from the dungeon he expected. The room was small but richly decorated, with silk curtains and silver walls. He sat on the floor, wrists still burning from his glowing chains. His mind was storming. "What just happened to me?" he muttered under his breath. He was ready to die in the throne room. Instead, he was now being called a future husband. Not just any husband, but to the alien princess herself. He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "This has to be a trick, a game to humiliate me before killing me later." But deep inside, he remembered her eyes. That flicker of fear. That desperate light that no cruel royal could fake. She wasn't mocking him. No, she was reaching for something, perhaps reaching for him. That night, while the palace rumbled with angry nobles, Daniel heard the faint sound of footsteps outside his chamber. The door creaked, and there she was, Princess Liara, covered in a hooded cloak, her golden eyes glowing faintly under the fabric. He stood quickly, unsure whether to bow or to fight. "So this is it?" he asked bitterly. "The final laugh before you order my execution?" But she didn't laugh. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "No," she whispered. "I saved you because I need you." Her words cut deeper than chains. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "Need me? I'm a human prisoner. Why would a princess ever need me?" She closed the door behind her, stepping closer. Her voice trembled as she explained. "You don't understand. In 3 nights, I was to be married to the warlord. He is not a man. He is a beast. If I belong to him, I will be nothing but a tool. He will crush not just me, but my people. And I cannot allow that." Daniel frowned, confusion tightening his face. "Then why me? You could have chosen any alien in your court. Why a human? Why a prisoner?" For a moment, her golden eyes softened. "Because you are the only one he cannot control," she said. "Our people, we have something called a life bond. It ties us, it chains us. The warlord would use it to enslave me forever. But humans are immune. If I bond with you, he cannot touch me. He cannot rule through me." Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, a human dragged in chains, now being told he was the only shield between a princess and a galactic tyrant. But he could see her shaking hands, the way her voice cracked when she said, "Enslave." This was no trick. This was her only chance. Still, he wasn't ready to accept it. "And what about me?" he asked coldly. "You think I want to be tied to your throne, to your enemies, to your warlord? You think I want to die in your war?" Her shoulders stiffened, but her eyes glistened. "No," she whispered. "I don't want you to die. I just need someone who can save me, even if it's only for a little while." Silence filled the chamber. The sound of her trembling breath was the only thing between them. Daniel looked away. His mind screamed at him to refuse, to walk away. But something inside him, a small ember of humanity, hesitated. She wasn't just a princess. She was a girl trapped in a nightmare. Outside the chamber, shadows moved. The minister's whispers had turned into action. Already, blades were being sharpened. The order had been given. If the human lived until dawn, their empire would crumble. Inside, Daniel's eyes narrowed. He could feel the storm coming. He had a choice: stay silent and be killed in his sleep, or step into a role that could change everything. And as the princess whispered again, "Please, just for tonight, trust me." Daniel felt the weight of fate pressing down on him. The warlord's shadow was already stretching across the stars, and the whispers behind the throne were only the beginning. The palace slept, but Daniel could not. He sat against the cold wall of the chamber, his wrists still marked by the glow of chains. The words of the alien princess echoed again and again in his mind. "You are the only one he cannot control." It sounded like madness, yet her eyes, her trembling hands, they had not lied. For the first time since his capture, Daniel felt the weight of something larger than his own survival. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was now a piece of the princess's desperate plan. The door creaked softly. His muscles tensed. Was it the guards? An assassin? He reached for a weapon he did not have. But the figure that slipped into the room was small, cloaked, and carrying a faint glow. Princess Lyara. She shut the door behind her quickly, her face pale, her golden eyes darted nervously. She looked nothing like the proud ruler from the throne room. Instead, she looked like a girl running from her nightmares. Daniel frowned. "Again? You should not be here. If your ministers see you sneaking into a human's chamber, they'll tear you apart." Her voice broke as she whispered, "I don't care." She came closer, her cloak brushing the floor. "I cannot wait anymore. I must tell you everything, or you will never trust me." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You already told me you're trying to escape the warlord. You want me as your shield, but why me, truly? I want the truth, princess, not half whispers." Her hands shook as she removed her cloak, letting it fall to the floor. Her small frame looked fragile in the dim light, but her golden eyes burned with something fierce. "The truth," she said, softly, "is that I cannot fight him alone. If I marry him, I lose myself. If I defy him, I lose my people. But if I bond with you, I might have a chance to save both." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Bond? What bond?" She swallowed, stepping closer. Her voice grew quieter, as if even the walls might betray her. "Among my people, marriage is not just words or vows. It is a life bond, a chain of energy that ties two souls. It gives one power over the other. That is why the warlord wants me. If I bond with him, he will own me. He will use me as his weapon. He will rule through me." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had seen cruel leaders before, but the thought of one using a living bond to enslave someone shook him. He muttered, "And humans can't be bound." Liara nodded. Her golden eyes softened as she whispered, "Yes, humans are outside our laws of magic. That is why I chose you, because you are the one thread he cannot cut, the one chain he cannot forge." Daniel looked away, anger and disbelief twisting inside him. "So that's it, huh? I'm not a man to you, I'm just a shield, a weapon to keep your warlord away." Her voice cracked. She took another step forward, so close now he could see the tremble of her lips. "No, not just a shield, She stopped, lowering her head. "I chose you because you were unbroken. They dragged you in chains, beaten and bleeding, and yet you kept your head high. I saw it. You did not bow. You did not break. I need someone like that. Someone who can stand when all else falls." Daniel felt her words strike something deep in his chest. He wanted to stay cold, to reject her, but he could not deny the truth. He had never bowed, not even in defeat. Still, he whispered harshly, "And what if I refuse? What if I don't want to be your savior?" Liara's golden eyes shimmered with moisture. For a moment, the proud alien princess vanished, leaving only a frightened young woman. "Then I will be his," she whispered. "And when he owns me, he will take everything. My people, your world. Earth, he already speaks of it as prey." Daniel froze, his fists clenched, her words pierced through his doubt. The warlord's hunger was not just for her, it was for conquest. If he walked away, Earth itself might burn. The chamber grew silent. Only their breaths filled the space. She lowered herself to her knees in front of him, her voice breaking completely. "I never thought I would beg anyone, but I'm begging you now, human. Save me. Save us. Even if it means pretending to be my husband." Daniel stared down at her, shocked. An alien princess, kneeling, begging a chained human for mercy. It was something no song, no legend could have imagined. His heart pounded. His instincts screamed at him to say no, to escape while he could. But another voice whispered inside him, the voice of a soldier who had sworn to protect, who could not walk away from those who begged for help. Before he could answer, a shadow passed by the door. A faint sound of metal sliding against stone. His body stiffened. He knew that sound. Assassins. Liara's eyes widened, too. She had heard it as well. She grabbed his chained wrist, her golden eyes flashing with fear. "They're coming for you. The ministers want you dead before the warlord arrives. If you die, everything ends." Daniel rose, pulling her to her feet. His voice hardened. "Then you better pray I survive the night, princess, because I'm starting to think you don't just need me. You're stuck with me." The torches outside flickered. The whisper of blades grew louder. The hidden plea had been spoken, but the real test was just beginning. The night in the alien palace stretched long and heavy. Daniel sat in the corner of his chamber, his wrists bruised where the glowing chains had once held him. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. He kept hearing the princess's words again and again. "If you refuse me, he will own me, and then he will own your world too." For years, Daniel had fought battles as a soldier. He had seen war, blood, and betrayal, but he had never been caught in something like this. He was no king, no noble, just a man from Earth who had been unlucky enough to be captured. And now, he was being asked to become the husband of a princess and the shield against a galactic tyrant. It felt absurd, impossible. Yet, deep in his chest, he knew the choice was real. If he said yes, he would be pulled into alien politics, into the center of a storm that could crush him. If he said no, he might still die, but worse, Earth might fall with him. The door opened slowly. His body stiffened. His hand went to the broken edge of a cup near him, the only thing in the room that could serve as a weapon. But it was only Princess Liara again. She entered quietly, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders, her golden eyes tired but alert. "You haven't slept," she whispered, noticing his restless posture. Daniel laughed bitterly. "Sleep? Hard to rest when assassins are sharpening their blades outside your door." Her lips tightened. She knew he was right. Her own spies had confirmed it. The ministers were preparing to remove him before dawn. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I will not let them kill you. Not while I still breathe." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Why risk yourself for me? You hardly know me." "To you, I'm just a tool against the warlord." Her eyes softened. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "Yes, I chose you because you are immune to the bond, but I also chose you because you stood proud even when in chains. I have lived my whole life surrounded by men who kneel, who obey, who betray for gold or power. You are the first I have seen who refuses to bend. That is why I trust you." Her words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. He turned away, his voice low. "Trust me all you want, princess, but if I say yes to this, I'll be tied to your war forever, and I don't know if I want that." Liara hesitated. Then slowly, she sat across from him on the floor. The cold stone between them carried the weight of two worlds. "Do you think I want this?" she whispered. "Do you think I dream of giving my life to a stranger? I was raised to believe my choices never mattered. My father promised me to the warlord before I could even speak. For me, there is no escape. The only thing I can do is fight against the chains placed on me. And you?" Her voice cracked. "You are the only chance I have." Daniel studied her carefully. He had expected arrogance, manipulation, perhaps even cruelty. But what he saw now was raw truth. A young woman cornered by duty and fear, desperate enough to place her future in the hands of a human she barely knew. His heart tightened. He wanted to tell her no, to protect himself, to walk away. But something deep inside whispered that walking away wasn't who he was. He remembered the faces of his people back on Earth, the villages he had sworn to protect as a soldier. And now the stakes were bigger than one planet. Still, the human part of him resisted. "Even if I agree," he said slowly, "I will be hated. Your court despises me. Your people will see me as filth, and the warlord will hunt me. I'll be the enemy of an empire. That's not marriage, princess. That's suicide." Liara lowered her gaze, her golden hair falling across her face. "Then let it be suicide," she whispered. "Better to die free than live as a slave." Her words hung heavy in the air. Daniel's chest tightened. He realized she wasn't exaggerating. She would rather die than belong to the warlord, and if he refused her, he would be signing her death sentence. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint sounds of footsteps outside. He knew assassins were waiting. Ministers were plotting. The warlord's shadow already loomed. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. His mind screamed at him to run, but his heart whispered another truth. He could not abandon her. Not when she looked at him with that desperate mix of courage and fear. Not when his refusal might doom Earth as well. He finally opened his eyes, his voice low but firm. "If I do this, if I marry you, it won't just be for you, princess. It will be for my people too. Because if what you say is true, then the warlord will come for Earth whether I stand or not." Liara's lips parted. Her eyes glistened with relief. She reached out as if to touch his hand but stopped. Her voice trembled. "Then, you'll stand with me?" Daniel sighed, his face hardened with resolve. "I haven't said yes, but I'm not saying no either. Just know this, princess. If I fight on my terms. I will not be your puppet." Her golden eyes met his, and for the first time a faint smile touched her lips. "I would not dare make you one," she whispered. But even as those words passed, the sound of steel, scraping against stone, came again, louder this time. Both of them turned toward the door. Shadows moved in the hall. Daniel clenched his fists. "Looks like your ministers don't want to wait for my answer," he muttered. Liara rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with sudden fire. "Then tonight, human, you will see exactly what it means to stand at my side." And as the torches outside flickered, the chamber filled with the sharp breath of danger, Daniel knew his dilemma was far from over, because the choice was no longer only his to make. Morning. Light spilled through the palace windows, but the shadows of the night still lingered in Daniel's mind. He had survived the whispers of knives in the dark, survived the assassins that prowled the halls, yet the danger had not ended. It had only begun. The ministers had failed to silence him. The assassins had retreated when Liara herself had stood. Between him and their blades, now the court had no choice but to obey her will. The announcement spread quickly across the empire. The human prisoner would marry the princess. The palace trembled with unrest. Nobles screamed, commoners whispered, and soldiers cursed. But no one dared oppose Liara's command. Not openly. Not when she carried the blood of rulers. Not when her golden eyes burned with defiance. Daniel, however, felt no triumph. He stood in a chamber filled with silk robes and ritual ornaments. Guards hovered around him, dressing him in garments of ceremony. He pulled at the fabric, uncomfortable. "This is insane," he muttered. "I should be free, not wearing some alien costume to a wedding I never asked for." But the guards ignored him, their eyes cold, Some glared with hatred, some with disgust. None saw him as a groom. They saw him as a mistake. The door opened. Liara entered. She wore a gown of white and silver, flowing like starlight. A crown of crystal rested upon her head. She looked every part the royal bride, yet her golden eyes betrayed the storm within. For a moment, Daniel forgot to breathe. She looked fragile, yet strong, frightened, yet unbroken. He whispered under his breath, "You're really going through with this?" She turned her gaze to him, her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "We both are," she said softly. "Or else everything ends today." He wanted to argue, to fight. But before he could, horns echoed across the palace. The ceremony was beginning. The throne room had been transformed. Banners of silver and blue hung from the walls. The air smelled of burning incense. Nobles filled the hall, their faces a mix of horror and disbelief. Some whispered prayers, others muttered curses. The High Minister stood ready, holding the sacred book of bonds. His hands trembled with rage. But he dared not disobey. Daniel was led forward, chains still around his wrists. They were loosened only enough for him to move. The sight of him in chains sent waves of murmurs through the crowd. A human in chains, marrying a princess. One hissed, "It is a mockery." Liara walked down the hall, every step firm despite the storm around her. She stopped at Daniel's side. Her hand reached for his. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly, but she did not let go. The High Minister's voice boomed, though strained with fury. "By the law of the bond, the princess and her chosen shall be joined. Their souls tied, their lives bound as one." Daniel clenched his jaw. He wanted to resist. But when he looked at Liara, he saw the fear hidden deep inside her, the desperate plea she had shown him in the quiet of his chamber. He realized this ceremony was not just about her. It was about survival, about protecting Earth, about defying a monster. The minister began the chant. Energy filled the air, a glowing circle forming around them. The nobles gasped as the chains on Daniel's wrists flared with light. The ceremony was forcing a bond, but something was wrong. The energy did not flow into him. It bent, twisted, and snapped like sparks against stone. The circle shook violently. The crowd cried out. The High Minister's eyes widened in shock. "The bond, it will not take hold." Liara's voice rang clear. "Because he is human," she declared, "and no human can ever be chained." The hall erupted. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. The bond was broken. The sacred magic had failed. Daniel stood untouched, free of the invisible chains that would have enslaved any alien groom. But before the crowd could recover, the great doors of the throne room burst open. A roar echoed through the hall. The warlord had arrived. He was taller than any man, his armor black as night, his eyes burning red with fury. He stepped forward, his heavy boots cracking the marble floor. Behind him marched soldiers armed with blades that dripped with fire. His voice thundered, You dare choose this weak creature over me." His gaze fell on Daniel, sharp as a blade. "A human will take what is mine. I will tear him apart before your eyes." The nobles fell silent, fear spread like a plague. The High Minister dropped to his knees. "My lord, forgive us." But Liara raised her chin. Her golden eyes blazed. "I will never belong to you," she shouted. "You may break my body, but you will not own my soul." She gripped Daniel's hand tighter. "And he is my choice." The warlord's fury shook the hall. His soldiers drew their weapons. Daniel's heart pounded. He had walked into this ceremony bound in chains, but now he realized those chains had turned into a challenge. The ceremony had not ended with peace. It had begun with war. And as the warlord stepped closer, Daniel whispered under his breath, "Guess this marriage won't be boring." The warlord's roar still shook the throne room as silence fell over the crowd. His armor gleamed black like obsidian, each plate carved with scars of past battles. His red eyes locked on Daniel with burning hatred. The very air around him seemed to thicken, heavy with the weight of his rage. Daniel had faced enemies before, soldiers, beasts, even alien war machines. But this was different. The warlord wasn't just a man. He was a storm, a conqueror feared across galaxies, and now that storm was aimed directly at him. Liara stood firm at Daniel's side, her golden eyes steady, her small hand gripping his with iron strength. Though her body trembled, her voice did not. "You cannot control me," she declared. "Your bond is broken. The human is free, and so am I." The warlord's laughter boomed through the hall, deep and cruel. "Free? You think this little trick makes you free? You think this creature can protect you?" He sneered at Daniel. "He has no magic, no power, nothing but flesh. I will crush him with one hand, and then you will crawl to me in despair." Daniel clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He wanted to speak, to fight back with words. But before he could, the warlord lifted his hand. His soldiers surged forward, blades glowing with fire. The nobles screamed and scattered. Ministers dropped to their knees, begging for mercy. The throne room became chaos. But Liara pulled Daniel closer, her voice urgent. "We must move now." Daniel grabbed a fallen guard's spear, its blade humming with alien energy. He spun it in his hands, unfamiliar but usable. His soldier instincts kicked in. As the first of the warlord's soldiers charged, Daniel struck hard, knocking one to the ground. The crowd gasped. They had never seen a human fight with such raw force. Liara whispered chants under her breath, her hands glowing with golden light. She was not helpless. Her magic flared, creating a shield of energy that blocked a wave of fiery blades. Sparks danced in the air. The crowd watched in shock. The princess and the human side by side, defying an army. The warlord's smile faded. His red eyes narrowed. He had expected the human to die in seconds, yet here he stood fighting back. Not with alien powers, but with human will. "You delay the inevitable," the warlord growled. He slammed his fist against the marble floor. Cracks spread like lightning. The ground shook. Daniel stumbled. Liara nearly fell, but he caught her, arm holding her steady. Daniel's voice was rough. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The warlord's laugh returned, but this time it was sharper, colder. "Then I will tear you apart slowly, so she sees how powerless you really are." He stepped forward. His massive frame dwarfed Daniel. His aura alone pressed down like a mountain. Daniel gritted his teeth, sweat sliding down his face. Every instinct told him to run. But Liara's trembling grip on his arm kept him rooted. In that moment, Daniel realized something. He was not standing here for glory, not for pride, not even for survival. He was standing because she needed him, because Earth needed him, because if he fell, the warlord would spread his chains across 2 worlds. The battle raged around them, but Daniel's focus narrowed. His spear shook in his hands. The warlord lifted his black blade, its edge glowing with crimson fire. The first strike came. Daniel blocked barely. The shock sent pain through his arms. The second strike came, heavier. Daniel stumbled. His muscles screamed. He had never fought against such raw strength. Liara cried out, chanting louder. Her shield burst brighter. She threw waves of golden light at the warlord, but he cut through them like smoke. Still Daniel stood again, his breath ragged, his body aching. But his eyes burned with something the warlord had not expected. Defiance. "You think I'm powerless?" Daniel spat through clenched teeth. "But you've never fought a human before," the warlord snarled. For the first time, his confidence wavered. He swung again. Daniel ducked, spun, and drove the spear forward. The blade scraped against the warlord's armor, sparks flying. The crowd gasped. It was not a wound, but it was enough. The warlord had been touched, and no one in the court had dared strike him before. Rage flared in his eyes. He roared, slamming Daniel across the hall. Daniel crashed against the stone, pain ripping through his ribs. Blood filled his mouth. Yet still he pushed himself to his knees. Liara ran to him, her hands glowing as she tried to heal. Her voice shook. "You cannot win against him alone." Daniel coughed, his vision blurring. But he smiled faintly. "Then it's good I'm not alone." The warlord stepped closer, ready to end it. But as he raised his blade, Liara stood before Daniel, her small body shielding him. Her golden eyes blazed. "If you strike him, you strike me." The hall froze. The warlord's blade hovered. His fury clashed with hesitation. He wanted her alive, bound, broken. If he killed her now, all his plans crumbled. Daniel forced himself up again, bruised, bleeding, but unbroken. He whispered, his voice hoarse but sharp. "You want her? You'll have to kill us both." The hall shook with silence. Everyone stared at the impossible scene. The warlord halted, the human unbroken, the princess defiant, and in that moment, Daniel understood the price of defiance. It was blood. It was pain, but it was also hope. The warlord's eyes narrowed, his voice thundered, "Then you both have chosen death." And the throne room, heavy with fear, braced for the storm that was yet to come. The throne room shook with the warlord's roar. His soldiers tightened their grip on their blazing weapons. The nobles pressed themselves against the walls. Some prayed in silence, others cursed the princess under their breath. But all eyes were fixed on the impossible sight. An alien princess and a chained human standing side by side. Daniel's chest burned with pain, his ribs bruised, blood staining. His lips, yet his eyes stayed locked on the warlord. He had no magic, no royal blood, no powerful army behind him. But he had something the warlord could not understand. An unbroken will. Liara stood at his side, her golden eyes blazing like fire. Her small frame looked fragile, but the way she raised her chin made her seem taller than the towering soldiers. Around her she whispered so only Daniel could hear. "If we fall together." Daniel gave a faint smile, though his breath was ragged. "Then let's make sure we don't fall at all." The warlord stepped forward, his black blade glowing crimson. "Enough of this farce," he thundered. "This human is nothing. I will break him, and then you will beg for my mercy." Daniel tightened his grip on the spear. His arms trembled, but his stance was firm. "Try me," he said through gritted teeth. The warlord attacked with monstrous speed. His blade slammed. Against Daniel's spear, sparks erupting. The force sent Daniel sliding across the floor, his muscles screaming, but he did not let go. He roared, pushing back. His eyes met the warlord's, and for a heartbeat, the crowd saw something unthinkable. The human was holding his ground. Liara raised her hands, golden light pouring from her fingertips. She chanted words of power, her voice trembling but strong. A shield of light wrapped around Daniel, strengthening his stance. For the first time, they were not two fighters, they were one. The warlord snarled, his fury growing. He swung again and again, each strike heavier, each step shaking the palace floor. But with every blow, Daniel fought back, his spear guided not by strength but by stubborn defiance. And each time he faltered, Liara's light steadied him. The nobles watched in awe. Whispers filled the hall. "He resists the warlord. The bond failed, yet he still stands." Could this human truly protect her? The warlord roared, slamming his blade into the ground. A wave of red energy erupted, hurling guards and nobles aside. The shield around Daniel cracked. Liara gasped, falling to her knees. Daniel stumbled, his body screamed in pain. But when he saw Liara struggling, forcing herself to stand again, something inside him ignited. He remembered the chains, the throne room, her trembling voice begging him not just for help, but for freedom. He could not, would not, let her fall. He lifted the spear again, his voice hoarse but sharp. "You call me weak because I have no magic," he growled. "But humans don't need chains to fight. We don't need life bonds to stand. We fight because we choose to." The words cut through the hall like thunder. The nobles froze. The warlord's soldiers hesitated. For the first time, someone had spoken against the warlord with fire instead of fear. Liara's eyes widened, golden tears glistening. She placed her hand over Daniel's arm, her voice rising. "And I choose him," she declared. "Not because he is human, not because he cannot be bound, but because he is free, and with him, so am I." The hall erupted. Gasps, cries, and whispers shook the pillars. The warlord's rage boiled over. He charged with a roar. His blade lifted to end them both. Daniel braced himself, every muscle screaming, but this time he was not alone. Liara's golden light surged brighter than ever, wrapping around both of them. The shield became wings of fire, not of chains, but of choice. Daniel roared as he thrust the spear forward. Their combined strength drove it straight into the warlord's chest. The hall shook as the warlord staggered, his crimson eyes widened in shock. He tried to lift his blade again, but the glow in his chest spread, golden light tearing through the darkness. With one last roar, the warlord fell. His body crashed against the marble floor. The crimson flames of his blade faded to nothing. Silence filled the throne room for a moment. No one moved. Then whispers spread like wildfire. The warlord is fallen. By a human. And our princess. Daniel collapsed to one knee, his chest heaving. His vision blurred, but Liara was already beside him, her hands glowing as she tried to heal his wounds. She whispered urgently, "Stay with me, please. Don't leave me now." He coughed, a weak smile touching his lips. "Not planning on it, princess." The nobles slowly rose. Some bowed their heads, not to the warlord, but to Liara and the human at her side. For the first time, the court saw not weakness but strength born of defiance. Liara stood tall, helping Daniel rise. She turned to the crowd, her voice clear. "Today I chose not a chain, not a conqueror, but freedom. I chose not fear, but hope. This human stood with me when no one else would, and together we will stand for all of you." The crowd erupted, some in cheers, some in protest, but none could deny what they had witnessed. A crown was no longer hers alone, it was theirs. Daniel looked at her, his voice low. "You just made me a king, didn't you?" Liara's lips curved into a small smile, her golden eyes softening. "Not a king," she whispered. "My equal." And as they stood hand in hand in the shattered throne room, with the warlord's shadow finally broken, the galaxy saw something it had never seen before. An alien princess and a human bound not by chains but by choice. A crown for two.